Greetings from right here. There is a physics paradox that someone once shared with me, and it goes like this. If you are 1 foot from a wall and move half the distance to the wall, and half the distance again, and again, and again, you are now 3/4 of an inch from the wall. From then on, in theory, you continue to move half the distance at a time, and you never reach the wall, because the distance, even at the molecular level, always remains. Distance, like time, is a construct we developed to measure our reality. One can say that there is nothing flexible about either. They are fact. They are measured scientifically. They are truths. Except in human interpretation, which is the only reason these constructs exist. This is where we have to season our truth with magic. In a few minutes, you may wonder what these words mean or what value they have, and I will ask you here to be patient. The passage of time, as we see it, not as the clock measures it, varies enormously depending on our perspective, which is our reality. An afternoon with a loved one seems to go on forever, is filled with amazement and joy. Time is suspended. An hour in the hospital waiting room seems like days. An hour with a friend over coffee is barely noticed. Time, this immutable truth, set in place before we existed, held on stage by the planet's inexorable expansion, is blurred and twisted by our response. Now think about distance. For children, distance is a concept so abstract they must apply imagination. Their experience and so their interpretation creates the need for magic. Ask a 3-year-old how he got to Grandma's house, whether by car or plane, and he will have to invent the answer. If we look at things with that imagination, we get a feel for what still happens to us if we allow it. Distance has mystified me, even as an adult. I've stood at the edge of the Little Mojave and looked across 100 miles with no idea what the distance meant. I've stood on top of the Rocky Mountains and marveled at the curve of the earth, not knowing what it was I was really seeing because it is so incomprehensible. It is the same when I look at the stars, where science can explain, but the experience demands imagination, whimsy, and magic. Some stars, at such great distance their light is making its way to us maybe thousands of years after they blinked dark, appear in our lives like fairies. Someone can explain distance, whether in meters or light years, and I understand the concepts. But in my life, where the distance intersects, is almost always perception. It is my reality laid over the immutable truth, and that creates my truth. On the morning that I turned 19, I woke in a hammock at the base of Mount Harney, nested near the edge of a small lake on the west end of South Dakota. It was damp, the snow still melting. The cold held me hostage in the shadow of the mountain. I waited for the sun to breach the trees and push lower in my sleeping bag, greeting my birthday. The distance from where I sit to that place is measurable. I can look at a map and figure it out, give a number to it. But the way I see it, the way I am living it, it is right here. Just now, when I thought of going there, I saw myself there already. I know how to get from point A to point B, but that's like explaining a dream right now. There is no sense of distance except I am there. My perception of the distance blurred long enough to feel time compress, the miles shimmer, the cars and planes and shuttles and walking and running all scatter, and I am there. I can do this magic because of the intense emotional and spiritual connection to the place. It does not alter the world, it alters me. This sense of time and distance is turned into this mosaic, this blur of the truths we know scientifically. In its place is how I perceive it all. If no one bothered me with ticks and tocks and clicks and blocks, that would be how I would see the space between here and there. The physics paradox about the distance to the wall is just a way of demonstrating a truth. It does not take into consideration that I can feel the wall, sense its shape, texture, coolness. It does not allow that my perception of the distance is all that matters. I know the wall, the plaster, the wooden frame behind it, the nail, the thickness of the paint, I even know the energy it took to construct it. Even though the science, the fact says I am never actually going to bridge the distance before me. Here's why you should think about this. The word distance probably has never been spoken as often as it has now, usually in a disruptive way. Somehow in the days to come, you will have distance pushed into your life. It will separate you from the people and experiences you've relied on for the joys in your life. My friends, the distance is only as great as you allow it to be. I think this magical perception of distance and time is one we purposely dull. Like a lot of things, we no longer experience the passage of these truths the way we did when we were 3 or 4. For good and practical reasons, I suppose, but there will come a time when those are not as important as the magic. Perhaps the time has come. If you are apart from the places you wish for, you can go there. If the people that you want to be with are separated by distance, then find a way to dissolve it. It's in your power, and in a way, they make it possible. Don't be intimidated by magic. It is given to us by the same creator of distance and time. Hope this finds you piercing the truth. David.